Hey guys. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me start by introducing myself. I saw a lot of you guys at the front desk, but I'm Justin. I'm the chapter coordinator for the IGDA Orange County, and that's obviously what you guys are here for. Iocaine has been gracious enough to give us their office and give you guys food and drinks and everything else, so I just wanted to start off by saying huge thank you to Iocaine for hosting this event. So this is going to be the newest reboot of the Orange County IGDA chapter. From this point onward, we're hoping to have monthly meetings with great stuff like this talk that we're going to be seeing here tonight. So if you guys want to talk about anything about our future meetings or about IGDA in general, please let me know. Next week, Iocaine is going to be having a recruiting and resume workshop, I believe in the same room.
Yes.
Yep, so Tuesday again?
Tuesday.
So Tuesday, 7 p.m. next week, if you guys are interested in having your resume looked over or getting some interview tips, you guys can come back here. It's going to be another awesome event. And with that, I'm going to give the floor to Jason.
I guess. Hi. Okay, so let's get everybody where they need to be. Huh? Oh, I didn't know it was asking for my name. I thought it was asking for my status. Whose water is this? Or is that yours? This is...
You're good.
Okay.
I placed everything where it needs to go.
Excellent. So my name is Jason Fader. I am the president and creative director of Iocaine Studios. Right here is my good friend, JD Surintz. He's our lead artist. Let's see. So we're going to show you guys a presentation about Kickstarter, our experiences with it, and some information about our game, Steam Bandits Outpost. So this whole entire talk and everything is going to be recorded and posted online on YouTube on the IGDA's official YouTube channel. I don't think we have one, but I'll probably have to make one. Let's see. So let's get started. Oh, before I get started, quick note. At the end of the talk, there's a bunch of free swag up there. There are a few cards up there that have some codes you can use to unlock things, and a poster, because everybody loves posters. So let's see, and now I'll just get started. So, as I said, we are Iocaine Studios. We're a relatively small team. Right now, most everybody is working remotely. The team that we have, going in order from top left to bottom right, we have Esther Chen. She is one of our 3D artists. Alexia Fidel, she is our narrative designer. Tani Pasquarella, she is our camera lady, marketing director, and business lady, and apparently the team adult when we need an adult. In the middle row to the left is our lead programmer, Nick Lawson. And next to that is JD, this wonderful man right here. And next to him is some bald guy I don't recognize. And to the middle right is Matthew Yeager, another one of our programmers, focusing on database and servery stuff. On the bottom left is Susan Lau, one of our 2D artists. Bottom middle is Lindsay Laney, another 2D artist. And bottom right, Phil War, another 2D artist. So let's talk about my favorite topic, me. So I am the creative director of Iocaine Studios. I started out at Blizzard as a tools programmer, working on titles like the Diablo 2 expansion, Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft, and then somewhere along the lines I left to form my own studio called Iocaine Studios, and that was back in 2006, 2007, sometime after WoW shipped. And we released a game called Thread Space Hyperball, and also did a web version of an old game called Star Control for Atari. And then shortly after that, economy did some bad things, and so we had to kind of put the company on hold for a little bit and find ourselves a new home. So I landed at Obsidian, and I was their lead producer in a few projects. I worked on Fallout New Vegas, the Fallout New Vegas DLCs, and a few unannounced titles. And let's see, at Obsidian, this was actually my first foray into production because most of my background is either in programming or design, so that was a really fun experience. And I was at Obsidian for about 4 years or so. Let's see, and now let's go on to JD. JD, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Around you. So yeah, I'm JD. I'm the lead artist on the Steam Bandits project. I'm actually recently in the industry. I met Jason through Obsidian. I started out at a university called the University of Advancing Technology. Worked on a game project there called Atero, where I was art director and 3D artist for characters and other things. And I also worked on the Blink project with Lindsay, who was the art director, and I was a character artist.
And she's standing right there.
She's right there.
There's plenty in the front row. You'll just be that awkward person.
And then when I graduated from college and got finished with those projects, I ended up working at Obsidian as a character artist. Worked on a lot of the DLC content, and then went on to work on their future projects. And yeah, that's what I was doing.
Very interesting gentleman. There we go. Let's see. So whenever I give a talk, I like to start with the best part first, because let's be honest, we all have short attention spans, and if you're gonna remember one thing, I want it to be this. So I'm just gonna start with that first, and everything else is just gravy. So Kickstarter. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding sort of company, and they have a cool website where you can donate to projects and post projects, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities for independent developers like myself and a lot of others. So last year, around summertime, we posted a Kickstarter for our game Steam Bandits Outpost. And it was funded. Had a few hiccups here and there, but we were funded for about $55K. And the big takeaway from that project, which I'll get to, is it takes a lot of work to actually do a Kickstarter. So even though our Kickstarter launched in July, we started prepping all the assets for it in June. It took us about a month to film the video, figure out what our message was going to be, work on the assets for the page, figure out the stretch goals, the rewards, and just researching all the other Kickstarters out there. The main reason why we were funded is mostly due to being active with our Kickstarter community, responding to their comments, the forums, being very active with them, and also the gaming press. Kotaku ran a great article on us, and once that article hit, we were funded within a week. It was amazing. So another thing I want to mention is a few other successful Kickstarters that you guys are probably familiar with. Wasteland 2 got about $3 million. Great project. Another one is Project Eternity, which a lot of you guys are already familiar with, from Obsidian, and they got about $4 million. And then Torment, another one by In Exile, and they raised, I think, like $4.5 million with PayPal and stuff. These are great projects, but I want to caution you guys not to use these as examples, since the keys to these projects' success was either leveraging an original IP that they already had from a while ago, or a big name talent behind it. Sadly, most independent developers don't have that luxury. And so instead, the projects that I'd like to focus on talking about are the indies, because that's really what you can look at if you want a successful Kickstarter campaign. So Axel was done by a team of students from Chapman. It's not finished yet, but they were successfully funded. And very humble goal, and they reached it. They were funded for $20K, and they're a mobile game, gears and stuff, puzzly things. Another project, which you guys probably heard of, called Zing, which is something very Myst-like. And again, students from Chapman, funded, I think, within a week or so, and also around the $30K mark. Then another project, and I love space games, so I tend to track all the Kickstarter space games. We need more space games. So Star Drive is a 4X game, came out on Steam a few weeks ago, and they were funded for $17K, but since they came out on Steam, they've been doing very, very well. And another project which I'm now addicted to is Star Command. Star Command was an older Kickstarter that came out in 2011, and they were funded for $36K, and they just came out on iOS. And it's a really cool RTS-y, spacey, tactical game. Anyways, so the main point with these games is they found a certain market that their projects would appeal to, and they made them as polished as possible and knew who their audience was. And that's the key to running a successful Kickstarter campaign, is first understand your audience. The next thing is have a realistic goal. More often than not, you will not raise enough money to fund full-time development. That's typically the wrong approach. You should raise enough money to pay for software licenses, any other kind of expenses, but to raise enough to fully fund a team, it's fairly difficult unless you, I don't know, strike it lucky and just hit a chord and resonate with your audience. It's a very loud camera. Another thing that I'd like to point out is even if your project does not get funded for a crazy amount, it's definitely no indicator of the potential for its success. Something a lot of people don't know is a few years back, there was another Kickstarter, only raised $15K, but now the guys are doing pretty well. And I know all of you have probably heard of this game, but probably didn't know it was on Kickstarter. Cards Against Humanity started on Kickstarter. And they raised $15K. It was funded in January 2011. And they started there. They had an idea. They got funded. They did their game, and now they're huge. So even if you don't raise a lot of money, it's no indication of how successful you will eventually be. So a quote that I often like to say is, "Never give up, never surrender," by Brockdar's Hammer. So let's move on to other things and more nitty-gritty Kickstarter stuff. So as far as our own experience, when we originally started Kickstarter, we launched our campaign early July, and we were asking for 90K. Our stretch goals were to work on expansions or a sequel, and we learned very quickly that that wasn't really the right message. Also, a lot of other people were confused about what type of game we were pitching. Steam Bandits Outpost is a free-to-play steampunk fantasy town-building game for mobile and desktop devices, but it's not a Facebook game. It's not going to gouge you for money. We're looking at games like Civ or SimCity or Tropico for inspiration for it, because I'm very busy lately, and I want to make games that I could just pick up, play, and put down within 5 to 10 minutes. But I still want to have my city building fix. And so we didn't really get our message across as effectively as we could have on our first iteration of our Kickstarter campaign, so we canceled it within a few weeks. And it was just not the right approach. But the important takeaway here is, even if you don't start on the right foot, you can always just start over from scratch, just retool your message and get it right the next time. And so that's what we did. We lowered our goal to 30K. I basically sat down with JD and the other artists and looked at our plan for the game, everything that we wanted to do, and looked at what we can scale back on until we shaved off just enough content until it was still enough of a game that I was content with releasing. So originally we were planning on having 3 unique locations with environments, environmental weather stuff, and instead we scaled back to we're just doing one of those. Because if there's just one of those, it'll still be a game. It'll still be a great game. There just won't be as much variety, but we can add that in later. And we made that one of our stretch goals. If we get funded beyond that, we'll add this stuff back in that adds more variety into the game. Other things that we shaved off were the total number of pets we were going to have in the game, because collecting pets is another aspect of it, where you can pick up a pet, have it roaming around your island, and show it off to your friends, and they'll get jealous, like, oh my god, I want a cat in the game that has a jetpack. Who doesn't? Let's be honest. And so it was that sort of thing where we're just cutting content just very, very, very conservatively without actually sacrificing the core of the game. And from that, we also retooled our overall message. We listened to the Kickstarter community when they were confused, like, oh god, it's another Facebook game. That's stupid. And I'm like, no, we're not even going to be releasing on Facebook. It's pretty hard for what we're doing, and it kind of has a bad stigma to it. And so we wanted to avoid the whole Facebook angle. I mean, eventually we might release it on Facebook, but at its core, it's a mobile game and a desktop game, and it's not like the Cityville, Farmville, or like other sort of games where like, oh no, I run out of energy, I need to bug my friend in order for me to keep playing. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I got annoyed like hell with all those things. And so we just wanted to make a game that wasn't as naggy. And so that message resonated with people. Plus, another unique thing that we were selling about our game was that it was the first in a series of games utilizing a feature that not a whole lot of games do, called transgaming. And I'll talk more about transgaming later, but basically we have 3 games lined up, all different types of games, but they all interconnect within the same world. So one of our studio's philosophy is, no matter what game you play, you can always play with your friends. And the scenario I used with that was, me, my dad, and my brother, we all play completely different games. And I miss the old days when we were younger and we could just all play games together. But my brother is heavily into stuff like League of Legends, and I'm into actiony, twitchy games and FPSs. And my dad is into very laid-back, town-building, city-building games like Civ or Tropico. And I wanted to find a bridge for all of us to play together. And it just made sense for me. I thought of a potential world where I can fit all these games in, and boom, we got Steam Bandits. And Kotaku ran an article about us about that very topic, and once people read that, I think, what was it, maybe 20 or 30% of our backers left comments saying, yeah, I don't normally go to Kickstarter, but my boyfriend said I should really check this out because it'll let us play games together. And I said, cool. Let's see. So that was a great idea. So let's move on to other things about Kickstarter. Another question that I get asked is how does the money actually work once you don't actually get enough funding to fully staff a team with like a full-time salary? So, a bit of information. Kickstarter and Amazon take 10% of what you earn through your funding. So we made $55K, and $5K of that goes to Kickstarter and Amazon fees. It's just what they charge. On top of that, 15% went to physical rewards. As most of you know, on Kickstarter, you need to offer rewards and incentives for people to donate to the higher tiers. So we had sweaters, posters. Since we were a free-to-play game, we leveraged that and allowed had exclusive content like, you get this cool jetpack if you donate X amount of dollars, and you can design a captain if you donate this much. And by keeping our rewards digital, it kept our cost for physical rewards lower. And it's one of the things that we decided to do after looking at a lot of other Kickstarters out there, and how a lot of their money tend to go into shipping costs or costs for posters, buttons, and stuff like that. Let's see. And then we're using Unity, and software licenses cost money, and there's no way around that. So 20% of our funding went to buying Unity licenses for everybody. And then about 13% went to computer hardware, like just workstations for some of the artists because they didn't have really good computers, and also some server hardware. And let's see, what else did we spend money on? 20% of it went to conventions and conferences, because sometimes we'd send the team out to promote the game, meet with the fans, travel expenses and such, and so 20% of that went into those things. And then that leaves us with $12K remaining, which we're saving for a rainy day, because who knows, anything could happen. Let's see. So I'm going to take a quick drink because I feel sober now. Oh yeah, there's chairs. You guys can like sit up here and look at my back. It's a great back, let me tell you. There's some trash on one of them.
Unless you really enjoy standing.
Yeah. Well, that popcorn, it's in high demand. They're just huddling it. So anyways, that's it for what we're going to talk about for Kickstarter. And this is going to be a short presentation because I really want to open it up to questions, because I can't anticipate everything that you guys are wondering. So I'd much rather have a dialogue with you guys than just read a PowerPoint presentation I whipped up today. Let's see. So I'll talk a little bit about our game, Steam Bandits. So Steam Bandits, as I said, or Steam Bandits Outpost, is a free-to-play kind of town-building game. We have a few cool features that set it apart from other games. You can recruit captains and send them out on missions, kind of like Star Wars: The Old Republic or the new Neverwinter MMO. I really like the mechanic of being able to recruit people and send them out to do things. And Lindsay's giving you evil eyes. She wants you to smile. Great. And you can collect pets, get new outfits, dress up your character. Unlike other free-to-play town-building games, you actually have a character that you create and customize, and you can get cool outfits for it and customize every aspect of like colors and stuff. And you can also customize all your buildings, giving them colors or certain add-ons. If you want to have an island that has skulls and crossbones everywhere and giant symbols of Slayer and Megadeth, you can't have those exactly, but we'll probably have the logical equivalents of them in our game. Like, I don't know, Steam Slayer and Steam Death, who knows. But we want players to have that level of customization to basically make their island something that makes them stand out, that they can show off to their friends and say, ha! I am better than you at this, even though I'm not better at you in life. It's the little things. So I'll talk a little about the world. So Steam Bandits takes place in a world called Stratos. And in this world, it consists of 3 major floating continents. And they're floating from a mysterious crystal thingy that makes them float in the sky. And so the 3 main continents we have are the Northlands, which are very snowy, the Midlands, which are kind of green and lush and very fantasy looking, and then the Southlands, which are very deserty and kind of barren looking. These names are totally awesome. And then to the left, we have the Badlands. The Badlands are very dangerous. That's where the pirates tend to hang out. And since we have all these like floating continents, the Badlands consist of these floating asteroid-looking things just smashing up against each other. So pirates would typically raid a convoy and then retreat into their Badlands, and people don't like to follow them in there because it's very difficult to navigate. And I got this idea from Deep Space Nine. I love every bit of sci-fi, and like if you know Deep Space Nine, like the Maquis would hide out in like their little Badlands area because nobody wanted to follow them in there. It's dangerous, and so none of my ideas are really original. I just like using stuff. So it's as far as the technology and how civilization is, it is steampunk, but I wanted to make it stand out from normal steampunk. So I imagined a world where steam technology is pervasive throughout it. It is the primary fuel source, but there's no electricity. For some reason, metals can't hold a charge, and they cannot harness the power of lightning, which we might reveal why later in the game, and who knows, other things might get unlocked. But anyways, so imagine Victorian-era steam technology, but accelerated by about 50 years or so. So now we're in like the 1940s era, but steam technology is everywhere, no electricity. And so that gives us a lot of very large, bulky things and steamy stuff. Airships and jetpacks and squirrels. Let's see. So now I'm going to switch over to JD, and he's going to talk about artsy things because I suck at art.
So the concept you're looking at right now is done by Phil Worrell. As Jason was talking about, there's four different continents, basically, and 3 of which you'll be able to choose from when you play. So each one has to have a very distinct feel to it. Also, like the mood and setting of it will be, I don't need to talk that loud. Will be really important for the player as he gets to choose, for this land specifically, let's say he wants to play and have a nice little break mentally, he'll be able to escape to a tropical forest
there would
and
be
manage
a Zen garden here, is what you're saying.
Right, yeah. Okay. And then there's also, how do we go to the next one?
You did it right.
Okay, yeah. And we want it to feel like really homey.
Like you
and
have
here.
One
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, look, they're playing cricket.
So we have this tropical feel, and then we're trying to get like a very colonial feel for the rest of for the building and architecture. And I'll get more into how we went about designing the actual buildings. And a lot of this stuff, as we're designing it for like the whole scope of the game, or the 3 games total. So the art style will vary a little bit from game to game, but as far as like the overall feel, we kind of want to keep it familiar as players go from each game to the next. Go to the next slide. This is the Southlands, very deserty, sort of isolated from the rest of the lands. The people who live here are very spiritually oriented, and their resources are a lot more limited, so their perspective on life is much more precious. And so when a player chooses which island he's going to be going to, he's actually choosing which resources are going to be more available. I forget which resources are available in Southlands.
So I'll talk about resources. I wasn't planning to, but hey, why not? Another thing that is common in city building games or RTSs is you need to harvest resources. And so in this game we have 6 resources, 2 resources per major continent essentially. So the Northlands has a high concentration of water and flux. And flux is basically the crystal thingy that makes everything float. Some explorer discovered this weird floating rock, and he said, "Oh my God, what should we name this? It's a floating rock. We'll call them flocks for floating rocks." Like I said, I'm very original. And so they harvest this crystal, strap it onto their airships, and it helps their airships maintain buoyancy in the air. And from there, we have the Midlands, which is very lush and green. Their primary resources are wood and fabrics. We have a little woolen caterpillar thing that players can harvest, not violently. It sheds fur and stuff and skin, and so you harvest things naturally so we don't offend people. And then the Southlands, their primary resources are steam, because it's very hot. They can get water really hot there and make some cool steam stuff, and metal, because since it's a bit hotter there, metal is more malleable and easier to harvest from there. And it's the Northlands.
Yeah, and then the Northlands' main resources were water and flocks. And also the things that you can notice, can I go back here? We try to push like very fun, whimsical shapes from Midlands to Southlands. and to Northlands. A lot of it's choosing like the blend between saturated and desaturated colors, and the portrayal of the buildings here are sort of like just an initial shot at what architecture will look like, but it's not necessarily what it'll end up like in the final game.
Let's go back and talk about the architectural differences, and maybe I can do it because I remember like the different breeds of them.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And that'll be my turn anyway. Let's see. So going back to the Northlands, the people and the buildings, I wanted to have a very diverse set of cultures in this world. So the Northlanders are a cross between, I would say, Russian and Vikings, or Norse, sorry, as far as just their attitudes, their fashion, their buildings. The Midlands are like medieval European and some Eastern architecture, and then the Southlands are inspired by Native American and Middle Eastern stuff. I think it was Moroccan or something that Lindsay was going for with that. Anyways, so just thought I'd add that. So let's go on to Steam Bandits Outpost, like the main things about it. So we're not like one of those pay-to-win games or games that stop you from playing if you run out of energy or you need to nag your friends and all that crap. No, it's pay-to style. You're only dropping real money to make your character look snazzy, if you care about those things. If you don't, you can just enjoy the game and play to your heart's content and just look boring. I like looking boring. I just care if it works. See, another feature, yeah, we're on iOS, Android, PC, and Mac because we're using Unity. Unity is awesome. If you're an independent developer, consider using Unity. It's just a great thing, and if you have questions about that, we can answer that too. Though our programmer is not here tonight, and he had an excuse that he wanted me to give everybody. If anybody asks, oh, well, where's your programmer? And I'm supposed to say, oh, he's programming what he's supposed to be doing. Because programmers don't like talking to people, apparently. Even though I used to be one. So he does good work, so I don't bother him. And we're using the Unity engine, like I mentioned. So let's go to the Steam Bandits demo. And you're going to be driving, so I'll start it. And you can talk.
Let's see if I can play and talk at the same time. I'll talk a little bit about how we went about developing these things.
We should look that way.
This will be interesting. So since we're basically doing back pay, everyone is devoting their time to us free, and
free necessarily. There's profit sharing, and how much they're owed.
My main point is that I try to give people enough autonomy to where they feel like this is a place where they can throw their creativity and not feel like there is some sort of standard that they have to meet where it limits how they think. So if they can think outside of the box, the better. So this is the Midlands Island. When we were first building it, we wanted something that kind of reiterated the sort of grid style of an isometric game. So we created these little like flat plateaued cliffs and things. Can you guys see that okay with the lights on? Okay. And then on top of that, we have all these different buildings that we want everyone to be using. And the main concern that I had was that making sure that from a glance, people would be able to identify what the building did and be able to get to it quickly. Oh, and this is our little, this is some random friend who's visiting our island who wants to see our stuff and get jealous. And so, for example, one of my favorite example is the tailor shop, right? So you have this big sewing machine coming out of the top of it. We really wanted to, I don't normally play these kind of games, so I wanted to create games that appealed to me as like someone who's going to be really hard. Like how are you going to sell it to, a core gamer?
Ooh, I want to add something.
Go for it.
As far as GD not playing these games, I don't either. So a lot of us worked on Fallout New Vegas and love hardcore RPGs and all that stuff. But the first game we wanted to make was actually the second game of the series, and we'll talk about that later. But we needed this town building game to establish that intro. And so I subjected myself to all of those town building games, picked them apart, figured out what makes them interesting, what doesn't, and ultimately concluded I want to do it differently. So even though it looks similar, it will not play like them.
Right.
If you like RPGs or strategy games, you will probably like this game, even though it doesn't look like you will. Just trust me.
And so one of our artists, Phil, he also really wants to get more into those serious games. But as we're working on this, we're thinking of ways of how can we apply our creative freedom to a stylized world that would be friendly for kids, but also appeal to our more detailed minds. And you can see as each building gets upgraded, we intensify like all the things that we're adding. Let's see if I can get it.
And all of this UI is temp.
Yes.
It's programmer art.
So as you go through the game, buildings will upgrade. You'll have visual upgrades up to 3 different levels. On top of that, you'll be able to customize the colors. So if you want your roof to be green and your trim to be purple for some reason, you can do that.
Green and purple.
Yep. So all these buildings you can customize, you can color coordinate, and they all have like very unique feels. And they're actually done by several different artists. So we've been trying to keep, the art style pretty locked in place. You'll have a bunch of decorations that you can place around as flavor things. You'll have your own little copter or gyrocopter thing that you can fly around, and then everyone's favorite. Let me see if I can make some real quick. For some reason, our pets are made inside of. Oh man, I don't know how to play our game.
I've been drinking, but you haven't.
I know. Let's see.
Do it?
Aren't they in here? Oh, and this is our for me the temp texture.
Oops. So for those of you in the industry, the best way to get an artist to change or to update art is to make the temp art his face.
But I just enjoy seeing it so much, I don't even bother. So you can make little pets and stuff, and they roam around. And also, if you notice, let's see if I can... when this guy flies in, I have this thing for continuity and integration. So you'll actually see your little character like pop into the cockpit and fly around. So just try to put a little bit of that extra effort to sell it to the players. And the characters on the ground are actually 3D.
It's also worth noting this build is pre-alpha, so a lot of this stuff is, like the buildings are at a final level of quality, but functionality it's still pre-alpha, and I think we're looking at getting toward the tail end of our alpha sometime by the end of the month. So yeah, keep that in mind.
Yeah, what else? And then you also, basically our rule of thumb was that anything that was going to animate besides like very simple props would be in 3D, and then anything that was stationary, static, would be done in 2D. And that's been integrated pretty well. Let's see if I can get to the main character. Your main character will have these little avatars. They're actually kind of small on the screen, but we're going to use them for displaying conversations. So you'll see your avatar in conversations. You'll see it in the wardrobe. You'll see the mini version of your character running around the world. Yeah, and everything should change. So we have tons of customization because Jason loves feature creep. And so if you change your outfit, like so let's say you have a cloak, everything will apply to that 3D version of your character, if you can see it. Where is he at? There he is. And also color customization, that all applies. We have everything from hats, glasses, shirts, capes, pants, boots, like more than World of Warcraft.
No, it isn't.
Are you sure?
Yes.
As far as what applies?
I've been for 10 years and I made it.
Okay. You can tell we get along, really.
We have the same birthday.
We do.
I'm very picky with my people.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the visual side of things. Not a lot of gameplay stuff is implemented right now. I didn't show Pet. I think I made him, and
it's a cat.
Where is he at?
You should start there, and he's like behind the building. I see him. He's shy.
Come on, kitty.
There he goes.
There you go.
I told you people like cats. I told you.
Can you name the cat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Name it. Where's the
Right.
It's pre-alpha right now. That's coming later. Yeah. And also a squirrel with goggles and a cake.
Let's see.
Do you have a dog with a...
No dogs.
No
I'm kidding. Tawny would kill me if we didn't have dogs.
I keep trying to move the building. Let's see what else we can do. I was going to make a panda.
It's not a cat. It's only a cat.
Okay. Cool.
Condors.
There you go.
Okay. Go ahead and close the window.
What are the exclamation points?
The exclamation points or marks? Writer, what is it? Is it exclamation point or mark? It's either. So they mean the same thing that they normally mean in every game, because now the exclamation mark is the universal symbol for, hey, I got a quest for you. Yeah, it's a quest. We try to be as clear as possible with stuff. Let's see, so where were we?
Also temp UI, so that's not...
Yeah, it's all temp. So it'll look like a way better exclamation mark. It'll have an outline, and it'll be serious. Let's see. Okay, so going back, now I'm going to talk about the second game. This is the game that I can't wait to play, because it's the game that we wanted to make originally. It was the first one that I designed, but the scope of it was huge. So the second game, it's kind of unnamed. We have some tentative names for it, but we're just calling it Game 2. There was a code name for it, but it was kind of silly. So the second game, well, let me talk about the first game first. So in the first game, you recruit captains on your island and send them out on missions. In the second game, you play the role of one of those captains. You have your own airship. You fly the airship around, and it's an RTS or League of Legends style perspective. So point and click movement. Your finger's on the upper row of keys above the WADS keys, like League of Legends, which fire off abilities. You go from island to island doing quests, missions, collecting gear, picking up people for your crew that grant you certain abilities, and all the while playing with other players. The main inspiration for this was I wanted League of Legends style gameplay and action with the depth and quest diversity and exploration of Fallout New Vegas or Skyrim, because quite a few people on our team came from Fallout New Vegas, and we love RPGs. So this game would also be free to play. You would start off with a captain with a ship. Eventually you could get other ships, but only fly one at a time. These ships would have various abilities based on the crew members that are in them, and you're playing with your friends. So an interesting statistic that I heard from one of my friends at Riot was that a lot of players, when they play League of Legends, play against AIs, because I guess playing against other players in the real world can be frustrating because of what they say, hurtful words. And so I started thinking, I love playing with my friends too, but I hate playing against people. It's a lot of pressure. So I thought, okay, well, let's make a game that is more co-op oriented. So almost like a Diablo-style game or an MMO, where you and a few friends get together, join a party, and you hop through the dungeon equivalent in the sky. Since I don't think we'd have sky dungeons necessarily. But there will be levels that you go through together to do things, get loot, and upgrade yourself. So that's the game that I'm really looking forward to. And this game will tie into the prior game, the casual game, in that the second game will have no crafting. So if I find a recipe for a badass cannon, I really want this cannon, but I can't make it. But my girlfriend playing the town building game has a crafter that can make things. So I send her the recipe, even though I'm in a separate game. She builds the cannon, sends the cannon to me in my game, and I equip it on my ship. And now I'm cooler, and we've interacted together, which is relationship points in The Sims. And so everybody wins. And maybe that cannon might have cost real money if it's very special. Let's see. So open world co-op, because I love co-op games. Be free to play, because that's a good model to follow. The free to play models that I really like are stuff that the Riot guys are doing with League of Legends, or MechWarrior Online, Tribes Ascend, Team Fortress 2. I think those guys are getting it right. And it'll be available on PC and Mac. We'll be using Unity, but with how the controls work, mobile devices don't really seem like it could be a good fit for it, since it's very twitchy and real time, and everybody has different device specs and stuff. So the third game is the one that harkens back to my childhood. I grew up on games like TIE Fighter, X-Wing, Wing Commander, all those fun things. Everybody's very young in the audience, so I feel old now. But you know, Dan, Anyways, so this third game is more for somebody that is looking for an action-oriented game, that likes to play FPSs or twitchy games. In this game, instead of piloting a large airship, you now pilot a little fighter craft. And this fighter is very versatile. It's a single-man thing. And the main features of this game, it's arena, PvP, and PvE focused. So you're in the cockpit now. You're controlling it with, let's say, an Xbox gamepad, flying around, shooting at things, collecting loot, and upgrading your weapons and all that fun stuff, and still visiting other islands and doing some quests here and there. But it's not as RPG heavy, it's more actiony. And again, it's going to be free to play. We're focusing on console, but it'll still work on PC and Mac because there are compatible control schemes you can have for them. My name tag keeps falling off. And so yeah, that's basically the gist of the three games that we're planning on. And we're not going to work on all of them at the same time. They're going to be segmented apart. And the interconnectedness between the three games will not be mandatory. All of these games will just be good games on their own, and then the icing on top is, by the way, they happen to interconnect, and you can do things with your friends that are playing them as well. So if you're only playing one of these games, you'll have a completely fulfilling gameplay experience, but if you have a friend that's playing the other game, you can earn those relationship points and do things with them too. So about the connected worlds, transgaming, that's the whole thing that all three of these games are about. Transgaming basically means multiple games interconnected, so you're almost playing a meta game on top of all of them by interacting with your friends. And one example is Baton Quest, which I talked about, where I pick up a recipe in one game, hand it off to one of my friends, they make it, they send me the stuff. And then another example are custom quests. So let's say one of my friends is playing the town building game, they really need a certain resource. There will be a little screen that they can go to set up a job or a bounty on something, like saying, I need 400 lumber, go raid this pirate base for its lumber, and I will pay you 30 gold for it. Somebody takes it in the third game, which is more of the actiony, where you're actually in the cockpit. They go fly the raid, collect the loot, and complete the quest. And the person that made the quest gets the loot. The person that completed the quest gets the stuff that they were offering. And so it's like a hiring system. Anyways, so like I said, it was going to be kind of brief. Probably seemed longer than it should have. I'm sorry, I'm kind of boring at times. But let's open it up to questions. And since I only have one microphone, when you ask a question, I'll repeat it, and then I'll try to answer it as best as I can. Also, I apologize for how hot it is. It's getting kind of sweaty. Let's see, you in the back.
Have you thought about game economics for all for the quest creation and all that?
So the question is, have I thought about game economics for quest creation? Do you mean in inflation concerns, or?
Well, yeah, inflation concerns and all that other stuff.
So the basic premise that I'm going with is there will be a bit of a money sink. So in order, just like an auction house in most MMOs, the game always takes a cut. There will be some kind of a cut that's taken, but the player that posts the quest is also paying for the reward. So it's almost like in the olden days how actually hiring somebody for a job would work. Not too often we might actually have some quests that are static or actually created by the developers. But most of the stuff might be user-driven. As far as the economics of it, I have a math friend that will be advising me. Yes?
So, it sounds like the second game has the most, I know you referenced the Legend of the games, but as far as esports, and obviously esports is keeping growing in popularity, is that something that you are going to be thinking about from the ground up, is how this can interact, how we can watch this, how we can...
Esports kind of scares me. I really don't want to venture into that field because that might be like serious business territory. I want to focus more on the cooperative experience and I guess the RPG interaction, the narrative. So while there will be multiplayer, I mean, if esports happens to emerge from it, great, but it's not going to be something that we target because first and foremost, I want to make it a compelling game with a strong narrative and a very fulfilling cooperative experience. I'm selfish because that is the type of game that I would play, and so I don't feel right, I guess, making a game that I don't think I would play. Question, you.
So you said that players can create quests and things like that. Have you thought of the next step where players will actually be able to affect or change the game as time goes on?
What do you mean by change them?
Firefall is local.
I like Firefall.
I like Firefall. You played it. So they thought of that, or Legend of the Five Rings. They did that as well, where at some point where you have requests, right, there's a major event and everyone can participate with it, and the outcome will change the game.
So with a lot of the question was, will there be player dictated content? So if a lot of players go forth and do something, does that impact the game world? We will be running events that have those types of things. Another thing that I haven't spoken too much about is how we're actually conveying the narrative with these 3 games. Since these games are probably going to come out, I'd say a year to 2 years apart from one another, they're all going to start at different chapters in this world's story. And so, like in most MMOs, you'll have a main critical path story quest, and same will be true when you play the town building game. You'll start at chapter 1, and eventually you'll progress through these stories and unlock let's say, chapter 10. And let's say the second game that comes out starts at chapter 10, because that's the state of the world. And I basically want a constantly evolving and progressing narrative throughout these games, so that it's pushing something forward, and it's also bringing players back. So that, let's say, we release the game with the first 3 chapters, and in a few months we release an expansion that has 3 more chapters. If you lose interest in the game or you get too busy, players might come back to see what the rest of the story is. And likewise with those other games, those are also going to follow a similar model. As far as players impacting that, a lot of those chapters in the stories, there's a rough outline for them, but for various events and things that happen, it's purposely left loose based on how the players are reacting in the game and what caters to their needs the best. Because while I do have a story in mind, I'm really making this game for everybody else as well, so I want the story to also have their mark on it. Yes?
You praised Unity a lot, and I know it's becoming a juggernaut for indie and mobile game development. What hurdles have you encountered using Tool or landmines would you advise people about?
Let's see. One of the things that you need to keep in mind when you use Unity is you will still need to make your own tools. So Unity comes with a lot of stuff for you, and it's basically an engine in itself. It doesn't really have any tools that a designer would need to influence game content. So we needed our programmer to make a design tool for us to easily modify quests, NPC dialogues, game stats, game systems, the number crunchy stuff. Because otherwise, if we didn't have that, we would need to go into Unity script and manually input all that stuff, which can get very, very cluttered. Another issue that we ran into is whenever multiple people need to work on the same map at the same time, it does not really handle multiple user concurrency. So we tend to have a policy, if I'm like working on, let's say, GUI stuff, because I do some programming on the project, I need to make sure nobody else is touching that particular GUI scene or that particular map. Otherwise, we're going to be stomping on each other, and it's just not going to be a good time. And have you run into any art issues?
As far as art constraints, as far as art constraints go, we haven't really hit that many hurdles just because of the type of game we're making. It worked out really well to do 2D sprites and all that stuff, and it kind of shows its strength in that department. I'm sure that as we do more like high-intensity graphics, that we'll probably run into more difficulties, but at the moment things have been easy as far as art goes, implementing things. And as far as the concurrency goes, we have 2 other people who help me import assets, but most of it could be done by one person. It's very, very fast.
The other thing that I really like about Unity is it's, compared to other game engines I've worked with, if you want to see the latest version of a build, you don't need to wait for a programmer to fire off a build. You just hit the play button in Unity, and it plays it for you. Play as in, like, it compiles all the code very, very quickly, and you jump in, and you're seeing your changes. I have heard that there's some difficulty, again, with merging stuff, but we haven't run into a lot of those issues. Next question, you.
How much pre-production did you do before you launched your Kickstarter? Like how much of the gameplay did you come up with a prototype or something ahead of time? So actually show the gamers what they're actually getting.
So the question is, how much pre-production did we do as far as prototyping and other materials before we actually launched the Kickstarter? Sadly, not as much as I would have wanted to, and definitely not as much as I would advise other prospective teams to do. So we needed to launch the Kickstarter very quickly, so I didn't really want to talk about this topic too much, but we formed the team after parting ways with some companies, and so time was of the essence to get the Kickstarter off the ground so that we would know what we would need, what we would be doing a month from now, or a month from then. And so I had the design for the game. I think it took me maybe 3 to 4 weeks after doing some R&D with the other town building games out there. I played Clash of Clans, the Smurfs game, all of the Vills, all of the Sims, Mafia Wars. It was... Anyways, so... had all those on my iPad, and that was fun. So I did all that research, and I had a rough outline of what the game design would be, what type of game we wanted to make, what the future games would be. I would say the second and third game, the design could probably fit on 1 or 2 pages. It wasn't very detailed or fleshed out. I would say the thing that I fleshed out the most was the world itself, because I wanted to make sure that the world and the setting was as logical as it could be to me. Because whenever I play a game, if it has any plot holes, logical inconsistencies, Bioshock, I tend to take issue with it. And I want things to make sense. And so even though this is a fantasy-related world, things are internally consistent with themselves, and you can logically see, given the rules that are established, why things are the way they are. And so I wanted to basically invent a world where it could also house these 3 games that we were making, and eventually future games. But yeah, I'd say in total probably, I don't know, a month and a half of pre-production time before we started prepping for the Kickstarter, and then a month for the actual nitty-gritty of the Kickstarter, which was recording the video, figuring out what our stretch goals were, figuring out what the rewards are, getting all the art assets together, and a lot of that initial pre-production design process was me having lunch meetings with some of my team, figuring out who's on my team, recruiting people for my team, saying goodbye to some people that I thought would be on my team that weren't on my team anymore. Heartbreaking stuff. And just getting everything together and organized and just figuring out what we wanted to do. It was just a very indie grassroots kind of campaign. The one thing I do want to mention, though, which I forgot to mention during the presentation because I didn't make a note for myself, if you are planning on launching a Kickstarter campaign, there are things you can do to maximize your success. If you don't have any big-name people behind it or an established IP. Have a prototype. Have some gameplay to show. A video of your game in action will be much more convincing to people than just you on a camera talking about it. People want to see what you can do. Good concept art is also very strong. And then another thing that is good to focus on is find your audience and find journalists or blogs or websites that also that cater to your audience, because that is the lifeblood of your Kickstarter campaign. And then the other thing is set a realistic goal. Don't shoot for a $2 million budget if you're a small team starting from nowhere. Shoot for something realistic that can cover the fundamental costs of licenses, extra expenditures like going to conferences. If you can raise more than that, great. But set your sights low, and just try to be realistic and prepare for the worst, because ultimately your real goal should be you just want to make a game. And if you can make a game with a minimal budget, you're still finishing that game. It's not like going to be a AAA title, but it's a game that you're proud of, that you have under your belt, and it could be that extra rung in the ladder that gets you to that AAA game that you're going to make later. And so don't shoot yourself in the foot early. Don't be afraid to fail. I mean, we rebooted our Kickstarter, and I would say in my life, the failures have taught me more than my successes, and every failure builds you to where you are. This man knows it because he talks about it all the time and all of his advice stuff. He's an excellent well of knowledge. Next question. No hands. Let's see somebody who I haven't hit. You.
When you rebooted your Kickstarter, how upfront were you about what happened in the first Kickstarter? Like, were you like straight up with them in the video, or did you just try to answer any comment questions?
So when we rebooted it, we talked about it in our blog. We use Tumblr for blogging because Tumblr is a nice tool. In the video, we didn't really touch on it too much. We kind of saw it as a do-over or a clean slate, especially since most people that would see the reboot weren't even aware of our last Kickstarter. The things to be careful of if you do cancel and relaunch a Kickstarter, the Kickstarter site actually locks your old page. And you can't alter anything. You can still issue updates, but that front page is set in stone. The video is set in stone, so you can't even have a link to say like, "Hey, we actually rebooted this, and here's a new link." So I think even a few months ago, I think it was at Beer Wednesday, somebody walked up to me and said, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, your Kickstarter wasn't funded." I'm like, "What are you talking about? We were successfully funded." And I'm like, "Oh no, but it said it was canceled, and like you guys didn't get funding." Like, Kickstarter. But yeah, be careful of that before you actually cancel it. Update the page and make sure people are aware that you're canceling this for a reason, and to look somewhere, search again for the new location. Yeah, I think that answered most of the question. Next question. You in the corner.
Yeah, so you started talking about the trans gaming and gaming across multiple games and internet and that sort of thing, which makes me think of the Force and Dust and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering, what sort of that's all super cool, but is there any sort of risk associated with that? Like, let's say I just want to play Star Wars Rogue Squadron with a Steam Fighter. Am I going to be at a disadvantage if I don't have someone doing my home ship and the base at home? Or?
Not in this game. As far as disadvantages go, I would say if you're a min-maxing kind of player and you want the ultimate best stuff, then yeah, doing things with other players across the other games probably will help. But your disadvantage might be only a factor of 2%. Alternatively, you can also play those other games, but to have enough of an incentive for the other people that you're playing with cooperatively, we want there to at least be some advantage that promotes it. And another thing, since trans gaming is such kind of a new topic, some people don't understand that it actually enlarges your audience. It doesn't limit it. So we're making a series of fulfilling games on their own, and if somebody doesn't play all of these games, that's totally fine. We're actually not narrowing the market. We're casting a wider net. So we're going to have players that enjoy town building games. We're going to have players that enjoy the co-op RTS style games. We're going to have players that enjoy the action-y games. And if a player already is playing a town building game and they know somebody that's playing the co-op game, they're going to play our town building game because they want to play with their friends. So if anything, we're going to be taking away players from other studios that are making these games, which is kind of dangerous, but nobody's picked up on this yet. So I'm hoping they don't until it's too late. Yes. Yes.
Just a quick one. What's the math on Kickstarter? So if you see $1 that's someone giving you, how much actually shows up in your bank account?
So I ran through a breakdown of where all of the cash actually goes. The Kickstarter people in Amazon take 10%, 5% for Kickstarter, 5% for Amazon. We raised $55K, and Kickstarter and Amazon took $5K as their cost for actually the service. I'd say about 3 to 5% of our backers had bounced checks, so to speak, where their credit cards didn't go through, so that was funding that we didn't get. We had some people lower their donations around the last minute, but that didn't show up in our final metrics, but I saw it and I know who you are. Kickstarter is great about actually giving you metrics for when people do things, charting, like when you spike in traffic. Another good site to look at is KickTrack, which plots how a lot of other Kickstarters are doing. But yeah, it wasn't too much of a cost, especially since Kickstarter had a built-in audience, and a lot of our backers came from just people that were already on the Kickstarter site. Kickstarter gives you a breakdown of where your backers were referred from, and so I think about 60 to 7% of our backers came from the Kotaku article that was run on us, and about 10% of them just came from the Kickstarter site itself after looking at donating to one project, and then there's a referral list of here's some other games that you might like. And so it's overall I was happy with Kickstarter.
So what about the cost of physical items as a percentage of the amount of money?
I'll go to that slide.
I missed the start.
Let's see, where was that? And there's some pretty art.
You're not going to pass the win.
Okay, so funding breakdown. Okay, so there we go, that's everything. And so 15% of our stuff went to physical rewards. It's actually less than a lot of other Kickstarters. Since we were a free-to-play game, we were able to leverage virtual goods, which do not incur a physical cost. Unity licenses cost us 20%, computer hardware 13%, which includes workstations and server stuff, 20% to conventions and travel expenses, and which leaves us with 12,000 remaining in case I want to put that towards my yacht.
One of the things that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with was we offered a lot of the ability for backers to create their own content that would be going into the game that other users could use. And we've actually spent a majority of our time like continuing to create that content. Yeah. So that's one thing to think about if you are going to offer rewards that are going to be given through the development process. But I mean, it is fun to get their input, and you kind of get an idea of what people expect to see in like steampunk is something that people kind of know really well. So to get user input was really cool, and we also like are continuously giving updates to people and them giving us feedback on those things. Right now, that caterpillar pet we were talking about, like we wanted help naming it, so we open it up to the audience to help us kind of figure that kind of stuff out. So.
I was given the signal by Justin, so I have time for one more question. Let's see. I will pick this person based on the number of fingers they are holding up. Can you guess my favorite number? Nobody. Everybody's just holding up 5. Okay, you're holding every finger and just alternating.
You mentioned kick track.
By the way, it was 4 and 2. Come on, guys.
And what other, if any, crowdfunding channels have you gone through? I mean, we have something on Indiegogo. Have you done anything other than Kickstarter?
We thought about Indiegogo, and I do like their model in that even if you don't meet your funding goal, you get to keep all the funding, which is nice. However, I found that the cross whatever. I've been drinking. The cross-pollination, yes, thank you, of Kickstarter was the way to go based on other Kickstarter projects that we had spoken to. So Kickstarter has a built-in community of people that just donate a crazy amount of money to lots of projects because there's people out there that just have money. You got a poster and a sweater. Yeah. And you haven't designed a captain or anything. Anyways, and so Kickstarter just made the most sense as far as what would maximize that cross-pollination. For our next project, we might cast a wider net, but at this point, I think it's Kickstarter or bust. They just have so much momentum, and a lot of other larger games are going with them. It just feels like the right approach. Okay, so Justin, come back. Where are you? There he is. Before I put Justin on, I should mention me and a bulk of my team are going to be going to, what's the name of that place?
Stadium?
We're going to be going to the Stadium Brewery, which is right across the street.
Stadium Brewing Company, it's down the hill.
Oh, Stadium Brewing Company, it's down the hill. Because I'm famished. I didn't actually eat any of the pizza. There's probably some left, but I'm on a diet. What? No, we're doing the stadium thing. Yeah. So the stadium thing, it's down there. I will probably be drinking more, which is the best time to ask me questions because I'll say more than I should, but I won't be on camera. So if you have questions about Kickstarter, the project, or anything else, we'll be there. And also we have a crap load of posters and captain cards here, which can unlock exclusive stuff for you. I don't want to take this back to my car, so please take these. Even if you don't want them for yourself, you probably know somebody that does, and you'll be doing me a solid. Thank you.
You want to talk about how your lovely sponsors are hiring?
And Iocaine, why don't you come up here? Come on.
She's a recruiter.
Oh, okay. And now Iocaine.
Hi, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here. I'm Rain. I'm the staff recruiter here at Iocaine, and we are hiring. We are actually looking to staff 40 more engineers this year. So if you know anyone who's looking, please get in contact with me. And we're looking to promote these type of events with, along with IGDA on a monthly basis. And so, it's important to be able to share knowledge, with the topics such as this. And thanks again for Jason and Justin, our leader of IGDA.
Yeah, so thank you again to the Steam Bandits team. So this is going to be the end of our meeting. You guys all have wonderful name tags. So as with all the IGDA meetings that we have, we really encourage people to stick around afterwards and get to know and talk with each other. There's a lot of really interesting, really smart people here, so go around, talk to your fellow neighbor, and a lot of us are going to be going over to the stadium. I just invited myself. I encourage you guys to too. So yeah, thanks for coming tonight. Next month is a surprise. Next week. Yes.
We're going to have a resume and interview workshop here. We're going to have an interview and resume workshop here at 7 o'clock, and we're going to have a panel of recruiters from local gaming companies here, such as Obsidian. It's going to be here, and also Turtle Rock Studios, and we're going to have a few hiring managers. So if you, this is a great opportunity for people who are on the market to get some tips on how to break into the gaming industry.
Bring in your resume.
And so bring in your resumes, and we'll be happy to review it for you.
One more thing to that. I've been to these resume workshops before. Not just your resumes, bring your portfolios. You'll be surprised how bad your resume really is. And we will tell you. We will be brutally honest. So go ahead, come on down. And is there going to be free pizza again?
Of course.
Free pizza, people. Come on. Yeah. And I think that's it. That's it. Thanks, everybody.